We actively seek leaders who can invent, think big, have a bias for action, and deliver results. Those are the words that I read in a Fortune magazine article a couple of years ago when I thought about transitioning into a new career. Invent? I have that down. A decade's worth of Marine Corps ingenuity has me creating innovation out of all of our frustrations. We're known for doing more with less. Think big. I've carried the weight of over 200 years of military service on my shoulders, and I understand the consequences of tactical actions to the strategic operations. Bias for action. Initiative was one of the 14 leadership traits that was ingrained in me from day one at Parris Island, South Carolina. And deliver results, I think we can all agree that no other organization on the planet delivers results like the United States military. I was ready, or at least I thought I was. I was sharply dressed. I walked into the interview room. I still maintained the gig line and made sure that my shirt and trousers were neatly pressed. As I sat in the interview room, I started rehearsing the answers to what I expected my questions to be. What interests you in Amazon? How would you handle a conflict between team members? What happened next, I didn't expect. As I was rehearsing the answers to what I thought were going to be the questions, in walks a doppelganger of the dude from The Big Lebowski. If you don't know who the dude is, he is a Jeff Bridges character who rocks tattered shorts, sandals, a long beard, and has weary eyes, with very relaxed nature. What happens when you type www.amazon.com into your internet browser? I stood there perplexed. He got right down to business. No pleasantries, no hi, how are you, no do you want any water. It was all about technical knowledge. Suddenly, the dude transformed in front of my eyes into my battalion sergeant major 10 years prior when I was sitting in front of him for a meritorious promotion board. He may as well have asked, what are the 4 positions of rest? It was an expected question, or what should have been an expected question, and I had no idea what the answer was. Magic, I thought to myself. Magic electrons go from my computer to another computer, and I'm able to shop and buy things on Amazon? I didn't know the answer. I had no clue. I offered an attempt to walk through what I thought the process might be. So I bombed it. I had no idea. But the next question I nailed. Give me an example of a significant failure in your professional career, and what did you learn from it? I was in charge of a team of Marines in Iraq during the lead up to the 2010 Iraqi parliamentary election. Our team was responsible for every piece of geographic information in Al Anbar province. We maintained it on our database, it was live, and it was ready to go at a moment's notice. And I mean everything. Polling stations, hospitals, fire stations, ingress and egress routes, checkpoints, all of it. One night I was tinkering with this database in an attempt to try and make it more available to all of the users that required it. And something happened. It was catastrophic. All of the data was gone. I don't know precisely what I did, but the data disappeared. Kaput. Do not resuscitate. I was suddenly faced with an monumental challenge. How do I get this data back so that the Marines and service members who need it would have access to it come election day? What happened surprised me. The service members persevered. We worked tirelessly for 3 days and 3 nights to repopulate a database that I ruined. I deleted it. It was a failure of my career and one that I still reflect on. But I learned something that day. I learned that when faced with adversity, military service members rise to the occasion. We were able to repopulate every piece of data practically from scratch, and ultimately the data was dynamically updating and available to everybody who needed it come election day. I learned that service members don't shy away from their failures. They don't stick their head in the sand. We confront adversity and persevere through it. We find answers to the questions that we don't know. And for those of you who may be wondering, the 4 positions of rest are at ease, parade rest, rest, and fallout. Fallout always got me. These are the characteristics that all veterans share, and those are characteristics that we revere at Amazon. And I'd like to share a little bit more about our company. Our strategy is simple. We strive to be Earth's most customer-centric company. We don't look to our competitors when we're trying to make decisions. We start with our customers and work backward. This obsession is why we build a place where people can find and discover anything that they want to buy online at the lowest possible price. And now you may be asking yourself, how do we do it? We accomplish this with something we call our virtuous cycle. Looking at this graphic, you can probably imagine where our process begins. Everything at Amazon begins and ends with the customer. So we begin with our customer experience. By providing an exemplary customer experience, we're going to generate interest and drive traffic to our sites and services. That traffic, through word of mouth, increases. Now, what we could do, if we were any other company, is provide an offering based on that traffic. We could just provide a selection of services and products. But we choose to invite sellers into our ecosystem. By inviting sellers into our ecosystem, not only do we provide a selection, but we provide the best selection. Our third-party partners can provide things that we cannot, at a rate that we can't keep up with. So by inviting them into our ecosystem, it improves our customer experience. That's the first cycle. More selection, more products, more opportunity, better customer experience. And that drives our growth. Amazon grows based on its customer experience. With increased traffic, more selection, more customers, our company grows. And with that growth, we're able to lower our cost structure. And any other company on the planet, when they start to lower their cost structure, they give that money back. They give that money back to shareholders in the form of dividends. They give that money back to CEOs with their golden parachutes. Amazon gives that money back to the customers. We give our savings back to the customers by lowering our prices. Amazon Web Services has lowered the prices of its services 48 times throughout its lifetime. It's as true with our retail website as it is with Amazon Web Services. Lower prices improve the customer experience. And with each cycle, our flywheel spins faster and faster. Amazon looks for these virtuous cycles in every aspect of our business. We believe that with the customer, everything can be accelerated forward. Specifically, we're talking about Amazon Web Services and the public sector offering for Amazon Web Services here. But that's not our entire business. There are some logos up there that you may not be familiar with. I'm sure some have heard of Zappos, some have heard of the Kindle, some have heard of our hardware division and our software division. Some know about Fulfillment by Amazon, where our third-party vendors are able to store their products in our warehouses so that we can distribute it on their behalf. That allows us to get more products to more customers in a more timely fashion. And we're a big company. There are over 154,000 Amazonians employed worldwide. And at face value, you look at 154,000 and you may think, wow, that's a lot of people for that company. But what's staggering about this number is a little under a year ago, I sat in a presentation very similar to this one, and that number read 130,000. And at that time, the head of military recruiting stated that 3 years prior to that presentation, the number read 30,000. We're growing fast. The faster the cycles of our flywheel, the more we require the best employees to provide the best experience for our customers. And we're all over. If you've attended some of the other sessions this week, you've probably seen this graphic before. AWS is a growing business with worldwide scale. Opportunities exist across the globe. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, so there are a lot of places to work, but what is it like working at Amazon? So our culture is very much driven, well, as you can see from my attire, we don't have a dress code at Amazon. A lot of our ways are a bit peculiar if you're coming from any other organization, particularly the government, which is one that what Matt and I came from. One of the unique aspects I discovered after starting was our commitment to growth. As a people manager, I'm not only encouraged to grow the employees under my care, but I'm discouraged from holding on to my best talent. We believe that lateral moves across the company enhance Amazon's ability to provide the best services for our customers. We hire builders that want to innovate on behalf of our customers. We want passionate people that are ready to own projects of a scope and scale that they may have never encountered before. But most importantly is our ethos. Working hard is in our DNA. We refuse to rest on our laurels. We're constantly trying to improve everything that we do. And unlike the Kiva system that's pictured in this slide, none of us are robots. We like to have fun. When work is enjoyable, people are more engaged, people are more committed to our mission, and we never forget that our employees are also our customers, and customer experience is what drives each and every Amazonian. Completing our trifecta is our desire to make history. I felt this when I was wearing the uniform. Our employees are never satisfied with the status quo. We have a saying here, every day is day one. And what that means to us is that there's always more to do. We can reset the clock every single day knowing that today is day one of many, and there's a lot to do to survive. At Amazon, we have an Amazon Military Talent Partnership that we launched in 2010. The Fortune article I mentioned earlier was a commitment talking about how Amazon has fallen in love with hiring veterans. We set up a dedicated military recruiting group. We actively engage with some of the military bases and events that are occurring worldwide, and we are intimately engaged with our Amazon Warriors. Now, the Amazon Warriors is similar to any other employee resource group that you may be familiar with. They are an employee-led community group that acts in the interest of the members that it contains. And we have our Warriors, the Warriors that are dedicated to the military service members, their spouses, and their communities. Each Amazon Warrior has a unique story to tell. Sharing his transition story, I'd like to invite Lieutenant Colonel Matt Worsham from the Marine Corps to talk about his transition from an executive officer in the Marine Corps into a management position at Amazon. Every transition is unique, but the stories are compelling, and we want more.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome all of you, and by all of you, I mean all 6 of you. I was asked to come up here today and talk about my story, and so I don't have any prepared notes because I think I know my story pretty well. I'll do it a bit like a Quentin Tarantino movie, and I'll skip around and start at the end and work my way forward and back. But as Mike alluded to, so I just retired from the Marine Corps literally 10 months ago after 24 years of service. I was both enlisted and an officer. Right now, I'm an operations manager, so I don't know if Mike mentioned, I don't think he did, that we're not recruiters, we're not part of HR, we're just folks that, where the rubber meets the road, working here at Amazon, and we're asked to, from time to time, speak and give our time to do this kind of thing, and we find it's an important part of our job here, and we love it. And Mike and I attend many recruiting events and opportunities to engage with the folks that we're familiar with and help them transition. So I really like opportunities like this, and plus I'm out of the office, can't hurt. So what I do today is I'm an operations manager for Amazon Web Services, and I'm in the enterprise support space in a very niche kind of part of AWS where we support a very unique customer set, and it's public sector, but it's basically the intelligence community. I was a career intelligence officer in the Marine Corps, and signals intelligence by trade. I've got time at almost every agency that you can name, 3-letter. And so that skill set translated fairly easily, although they had to kind of create this position for me. So I think it's important to bring out, because Amazon will work with its veterans to find out what are those skills that are unique and that they can draw from and pull from and harvest. So that's where I am today at 10 months. And if you asked me 10 months ago where I'd be, I would not have told you I'd be standing on stage representing Amazon and speaking on behalf of this company. So proud to be here, not looking back. When I got out, I was really looking for something different. And I feel like everyone coming out of the military has an opportunity. The world's pretty much their oyster. I mean, they're coming with a solid set of skills. It's how they translate those skills and what they do with them that makes a difference, and how they tell their story. And that's what I try to impart to people as they're getting out. But I found that for me, going back to the government or going back to government contracting just wasn't what I wanted to do. Not that there's anything wrong with those jobs. I'm not denigrating those jobs. It's not what I wanted to do. I figured you get one big swing heading out the door to do something completely different, and I think Amazon's something pretty different. And for a very sliver part of time, I consulted, and then I got picked up by Amazon, and I'm not looking back. The transition process itself, and I don't know, and please, I want to make this interactive, ask me questions as we go. But the transition process itself is not easy, and anyone that's going through it knows that. It's a tough market out there, and even if you think you're coming out of the door in the military with a certain set of skills, there are 10 guys just like you with the same skills. So you've got to differentiate yourself, you have to package yourself, and you have to really craft your value prop for these interviews. And that took time. That took me 30 interviews to do, obviously, and it's a very high hiring bar getting in here. It took 10 interviews to get into Amazon. So that's fairly unique, I think, for technology companies, but maybe similar to some. Microsoft probably has a similar one, and Google as well. But how did I do that? You know, informational interviews, speaking with other veterans who made it and crossed over successfully. The transition course that we all get in the military, whether it be enlisted course or officer helped, of course, but you're only going to get out of those courses the bare bones basics: how to create a resume, how to speak at an interview. What you're not learning is how to really sell yourself and how to pull from your career. And you're not going to hand someone a resume that says sniper, because they're not hiring one of those this year. I don't see one of those on the Amazon rec page, but it's more than that. And I see, and Mike sees it too, when we go to these recruiting events, folks coming to our table, and it's hard for me because now I'm seeing that's myself 10 months ago. You know, so how do I help that person? And you can't help every one of them. Some of them, this is not the company for them, and it's not all about technology. There's a role here, and it might not be in AWS. It might be in Amazon fulfillment centers. There's 14,000 jobs currently open at Amazon. That's a lot. There's a lot of opportunity out there, but there's also a lot more people than 14,000 looking for a job. So how did I transition? Luckily I was in a job, as I left the military, I was at the Pentagon, where all good officers go to die. And I was in a job that afforded me the opportunity and the time, luckily, to do some job searching and at the same time do my job, whatever that was. And so I took that time and I crafted my resume, and I did some informational interviews, and I built my network. And as much as people may think that social media and LinkedIn and things of that nature are not of value, I will tell you that they are. And while my personal records are probably in the hands of the Chinese via OPM right now, and I'm scaling back my social media footprint, I will tell you that at the time it was highly valuable, and it probably helped quite a bit, because LinkedIn, I will tell everybody this, that and things like LinkedIn helped me, and they're never going to get you a job. Or if they do, I'd like to hear that story from someone. I've never heard that story. What LinkedIn did help me with was it gave me, as an intelligence officer, the edge. Because as I was going to an interview, I would see that this guy's connected to that guy, and I would call that guy and ask him to shoot an email to the guy before I interviewed and grease the skids. And on multiple occasions that worked, and it broke the ice for the interview. So I sell that very heavily to veterans as they're getting out to build their LinkedIn profile. For whatever that's worth now, I don't know, but it helped me. But again, I want to make this interactive. I don't know the audience that I'm talking to, because I'm not seeing guys that probably just got out yesterday. So I'm kind of curious what the audience holds here and what some of your questions are, if anything. Please.
So you talked about, go ahead. I said, when you got to AWS, were there things that were not in place that you would have liked to have seen, like matching up to another vet, or was the affinity group in place? Is there something that was missing for you?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I actively looked for those types of things once I got aboard. I was so happy to have a job, I didn't think twice. But once I did get aboard AWS and Amazon in general, I found a robust network of Amazon warriors. There's all kinds of affinity groups. The Marine Corps birthday is a big thing for us in the Marine Corps, and so we celebrate that pretty heavily, and it's significant. And on November 10th, I saw somebody walking down the hallway with a cake, what looked like a Marine Corps birthday cake, and then suddenly every Marine in the building came out of the woodwork and was down there cutting the cake. So there's a formal network and there's an informal network. I don't know that what was in place, I don't know that I personally needed anything beyond what I had coming in to help me feel supported or anything. It was, hey, you're here now, you made it, you're working, great that you're a veteran, thank you for your service. I never took the attitude that anybody owed me anything, you know, and I don't think anyone should. I mean, that was my choice to go in the military, you know. It helped me, it served me well, and it gave me the skills that I need to work here now and be successful, but I don't think I was looking for anything beyond that. But I would also say that it's a very military-friendly place to work, and it's a great company. I mean, and it appealed to me. It wasn't just making a big transition to something new and taking that big swing in a new company. It was also looking for a company that, for me, had a cultural fit that was very similar to where I came from. And I think that Amazon fit that because, as Mike alluded to, the leadership principles that we had in the Marine Corps and the military in general were the Amazon leadership principles look and smell a lot like those. And so those things appealed to me. And they're not just something on the wall that you walk past, a mission statement every day at Amazon. People live and breathe by those leadership principles, and they come up in conversation every single day. Bias for action, deliver results, earn trust of others, you name it, customer obsession, deliver results, you know, all those things. They come up every day, and they come up in good ways and bad. That guy has no bias for action. That guy's delivering results. And they come up heavily in the interview process, because the interview process is it's very tech heavy, or specific to the job, if you will, whatever that job may be. That's your first phone screen. Then you're going to go for another one where it's focused on the leadership principles only to see if you're a cultural Amazon fit. And if you make it past those, then you may be asked to come in for an on-site interview of a really fun day of 6 interviews back to back for an hour each. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I found that there's a pretty good network that supported me when I got here. So
one of the things that I noticed in my transition coming to Amazon, I had a bit of a different path to Amazon out of the military. I went the government contractor route. I'd spent a decade in the Corps working on an information system. I mentioned that we were responsible for all the geographic information for all of Al-Anbar, and that was my career. But I didn't like the system. The system sucked. And I was very vocal about that. I let the contractor know monthly, it seemed, that there needed to be improvements. And after a decade in the Corps, the program manager, when I decided to transition, called me and offered me a job. And he said, "You've been complaining about this system for 10 years. Are you going to come fix it, or are you going to let it fall to the wayside?" And I took him up on the offer. I have no technical background. I was an analyst, an Intel analyst, like Matt. And he was asking me to lead technical professionals. And one of the things that stuck out to me in every single quarter, we would get a new updated system, software-based. And we were given 50 pages of a document to thumb through to perform our system upgrade. That was unsatisfactory to me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't expect an 18-year-old math guy to work on IT. I wanted the Marines to be able to use the system for its intended purpose, not administer the system. So my first day on the job, I held up that 50-page document and I looked at my team and I said, this is going to be an index card by the time we're done. And that's what we drove. So I learned a lot about what it means to manage technical professionals, what inspires them, what motivates them, and that's how I found myself at Amazon. I gained that experience through the government contractor, but I had a customer when I was at that government contractor that I held very near and dear to my heart. It was the Marines. I had that esprit de corps, that camaraderie that it never went away when I transitioned. And when I found myself after the contract sunset and moved on to other ones that they always want to capitalize on talent, become program managers, and just walk that career line, I became disillusioned. I became disenfranchised with the whole thing. I didn't have a customer I was passionate about. I didn't have a purpose anymore. And then Amazon called and said, we know you manage technical people, you were a Marine. The values and culture of the Marine Corps and the military services translate very well into the Amazon culture. We think you'd assimilate. And I had my interview experience and was offered a job. And I got to tell you, I feel right at home again. The Marine Corps birthday event that Matt's talking about, it was magical. I hadn't been to a Marine Corps birthday in years before that. It was a cake cutting ceremony. We drank scotch. It was wonderful. It was just a bunch of Marines who weren't wearing the uniform anymore coming in and celebrating our heritage. And that heritage permeates throughout the entire organization, whether they served in the military or not. The translation from our Amazon leadership principles to the core tenets and the very core values of military service are extremely well. So I feel at home again. I'm excited to come into work. I'm excited to think big and have bias for action and deliver results. It's something that is unparalleled in any other career field. And talking about the interview process specifically that Matt talked about, we look for a culture fit. And it's really culture fit first. There's a lot of things we're able to teach, technical skills, but there's some things that just aren't taught. That esprit de corps, that willingness to persevere through adversity, that curiosity to figure out the problem rather than just give up and turn away. Those are the traits we look for. Those are the characteristics that really make an Amazonian a good one, a great one. One of the leadership principles we have is hire and develop the best. And what does it mean by the best? We're not talking about hire and develop good. We're not talking about hire and develop great. We're talking about hire and develop the best. And what does it mean to be the best? And we take that into consideration with each and every hire. And it's not easy to get in. And each and every one of us, we remark on our first or second day, how did I get here? How am I standing in front of an audience talking about joining Amazon 10 months after being hired? I don't even know how I got hired. I still don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I still feel underwater sometimes. But it's that perseverance.
I've been trying to figure that out too.
Yeah, we don't know.
How about you?
Oh yeah, I know. Everybody's trying to figure it out about me.
It's a humbling place to work, I'll say that. Every day I come in, I feel like the dumbest guy there, and I love that. Because there's always 10 guys or 10 gals smarter than you, and every problem is a gift, and it's a problem to be solved, and it's embraced like that. And it's a place where you come if you want to innovate, if you want to have a new idea. The other thing is, coming from the military, we're very PowerPoint oriented, and this place is very anti-PowerPoint, which is refreshing. Anti-PowerPoint to the point where I had to get permission the other day to use a slide. And I had to use it because my customer set is accustomed to that, you know. But I had to convince my Amazon leadership in Seattle, who's not familiar with this customer set, that it's okay sometimes to like actually do what the customer wants. But I say that because, you know, Jeff Bezos, who started this company, you know, obviously was centered around books and reading. He believes, and I believe, that you can't have a fully fleshed out thought unless you've written out your thoughts, because people can hide behind PowerPoint. You can be a really good briefer and be PowerPoint deep. So his belief is that you have to do a full narrative to have a good idea fleshed out. And so they have a process here at Amazon where you have to do what's called a 6-pager. And a 6-pager is basically, if you have an idea and you want to float it, you got to write this thing out. It's going to be backed up, and that 6-pager may actually have 20 pages of appendices of metrics and data to back up your idea. And that 6-pager goes before a panel, and if any of you are familiar with the government, you know, you send out a read ahead that no one reads. Well, here they enforce that by when you go to that room and you sit on that panel, no one's allowed to talk for the first 30 minutes because they have to actually read the document. And then they red pen it up and they murder board it. And then either that idea goes forward or it goes forward with revisions or it goes back to the drawing board. But that's how they get ideas pushed up here. And it's a good process and it encourages innovation. So from that aspect, it's just a refreshing place to work. And from a transition standpoint, it was definitely a shift in mindset from what I was used to personally in the military. So where ideas were, currency, if you will, and whoever had the fastest slides or could build the PowerPoint brief the quickest or have the flashiest show or briefing style usually won the general's attention. Here it's not like that. You don't deserve anyone's attention here. And that's been said to me. You don't deserve the attention of Jeff Bezos or Andy Jassy, who runs AWS. They're indistinguishable from you and I. I've interacted, we're a very flat organization. I've talked to Andy Jassy, who runs AWS, and you wouldn't know that guy walking down the hallway because he is not wearing a tie, and he's very unassuming, and he's very engaging. And everyone's here to do a job, and it's that kind of environment that I think draws and encourages people from our backgrounds to want to be here. So,
What other questions do you have? By show of hands, who in here has served? Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I've sat side by side with you. I understand the trials that you've encountered, and thank you for persevering through them. What are your questions? What are you interested in knowing?
oh,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
we pay them lower, but they're here.
They are here.
No, actually, one of the guys on my team is an Army National Guard active duty reservist. That's another aspect we want to talk about too. It's not just veterans who've gotten out. It's we encourage people. I mean, it's very friendly toward people who are National Guard active reserves or whatever you're doing. So yeah, we have a Navy Submariner.
On the team.
On our team, yeah.
Countless Air Force and
We're just proud to be Marines. We really talk about that, So.
You know us.
We hear enough about that during the Army-Navy game.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But so you guys, talk about the recent experience, and obviously I know there's been a lot of focus in the last couple of years about hiring veterans for all of the benefits that we bring to the workplace. But for myself, I got out way back in like 2001 from the regular Army, and then I was in the National Guard in Pennsylvania for a couple of years, and then focused on my IT career. So, but does it matter at all in terms of length of service, period of service? But like some people might be looking for more recent, people that are separated more recently. Is that a factor?
I can say that with 100% certainty that you haven't lost the core values that were instilled in you during your service. Those don't go away. So that culture, that experience that you bring, you don't have to have a vignette of the last year of what you've known about the military service and how you can apply it at Amazon. Quite the contrary. There are a lot of enlisted veterans who don't come out of the military service with a degree, don't have a solid work experience using the latest and greatest technology. Speaking frankly, one of the reasons we are here is to accelerate adoption by the government on cutting edge technology. And we're looking forward to the day that that is universal. So we know that, I mentioned the Marine Corps is known for doing more with less. The Army is no exception. They are stuck using equipment from the 80s, maybe the 60s. So getting out, getting your education in IT and gaining that work experience, absolutely we're interested in talking to you. I think every veteran will have something to contribute, something that they will raise the bar on everybody else who is already employed.
But I think you're asking also, like, your experience is dated from your perspective, and does that matter?
Well, not necessarily the military experience, but I just know that some of the hiring focus, in my opinion, seems to be on people who are separated, let's say, since the war, since the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's probably true, but I don't know that that's codified or it's probably more of a, and I also don't know, a lot of companies say we're veteran friendly. What does that really mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anyone really monitoring that? Like if I decide not to hire a veteran,
Is anybody not
I
veteran
mean,
friendly?
other than lodging a lawsuit, how's it going to get raised to attention level? I don't know. And I'm probably speaking out of turn because I'm not an HR person or a recruiter. There's probably maybe a factual answer to that. I just don't know it. But I know talent when I see it.
You talk about
You know.
informational interviews, but
Yeah.
there's no, like you said, you're not in HR, there's no specific liaison who's
Right.
team in HR that you can say, hey, when we're looking at military guys trying to quantify
Yeah.
their skill set or whatever, how it translates, their go-to something.
When Matt and I go to events, so we go to events sponsored by some veteran outreach programs, some veteran transition programs, and we see the entire gamut. We see service members still in uniform coming up and talking to us about what can I do, and we offer advice like strike the fact that you're a weapons instructor from your resume. Nobody in corporate America cares. To veterans who served in Vietnam in the 80s, and they're looking for strategic operational positions that are going to be leading large organizations. They may have served a single enlistment, they may have served one time or one tenure as an officer, but they have that experience that doesn't go away. It's the character of a person that we look for, not necessarily the experience gained while in the service.
And the biggest message I try to convey to people is that you've got to be prepared to reinvent yourself if you're transitioning. And I didn't say start at the bottom. You may have to take a step back, but you have to be prepared to reinvent yourself. And if you're coming to the table and your expectation is, especially here at Amazon, that you're going to have a desk and a secretary and a window seat and all the trappings of management and leadership, you're coming to the wrong place, and we don't want you. We just don't. Because you got to be prepared to roll your sleeves up. Hey, I was a lieutenant colonel. I had people supporting me and throughout my career, and I could reach outside my office and make things happen. Now, if you don't know how to map your own printer, shame on you. You better know how to take care of yourself, because it's a very flat organization. We're lean, we're mean, we're fast, we innovate, and we don't have time for shenanigans and games. And so we're looking for people with that kind of drive and with that kind of mentality, And that if that pushes people away, there's 10 more people behind them. So, that's my take on it and my tact, at least when I go into these events. So, other questions? Yeah. Yeah.
Just along those lines on reinvention.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about people who are maybe at the end of this year, I'm non-technical background trying to get into technical on my own time, nights and weekends.
Yeah.
But, so it's a big organization.
Yeah.
But are there, military is really good at training.
Yep.
I'm not sure if there are training opportunities or what's the line between what skills do you have to bring in and what they're going to train you.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I'll see guys that come from the military and they're infantry officers and they don't have a ton of technical background. So what are the first things they do? They do what the transition tours told them to do. Go get your PMP cert and go get your CISSP. I don't have either one of those, by the way. But I will tell you that those things, yeah, they can help, absolutely. But if you're just good at test taking and you passed your CISSP test, but you have no experience to back that up, that's a different story, and that'll be sniffed out pretty quickly. So I would highly encourage someone that doesn't come from that technology background to go get that, fill in those spaces and fill in those gaps with some additional training on your own. Because another thing we'll see, cyber, nowadays if you can spell it without an S, you got a job. But those days will soon dwindle, It was like the word force protection back in the day. If you said force protection, money came flying at you. Now it's cyber. People coming from a cyber background think, well, I'll walk into AWS and I've got skills that translate. That doesn't necessarily translate. And I can say that because I'm a blue-blooded signals intelligence guy. I did 6 years at NSA, and I know all the guys that do the cyber piece. And a lot of people will attach cyber to their name, but not really know what it means. And even then, cyber doesn't necessarily translate to cloud services. Maybe there's a small niche in security or cyber defense, but we don't. That's not a huge function of what we do here. So the guys that I'm looking for, and for instance, I own, like Joel here, sitting in the front row. He's a technical account manager. I don't own him. He works for me. We'll talk about that later. But his skills are deep and wide. But in addition to that, he has to have customer-facing skills. So it's a really, it's a difficult hiring bar to find. He's got to meet the Amazon bar. He's got to meet the technical bar. He's got to have people skills. He's got to get a TSSCI clearance to work in our Amazon space, in the particular one that we're in. There's a lot to deal with there. And then I got to figure out how am I going to retain a guy like that, because I have to look at attrition. So there's all kinds of things that come into play. Luckily, Joel, you know, he's here. He's in for the big win. So, right? Good. Okay. You know, so yeah, I don't know if that answered. I see that all the time, and you know, I don't want to say it was easier for me because I came from a technology-like communications background in the military, but that probably helped. You know, it probably certainly helped. The guys that are coming from those hardcore infantry and combat arms backgrounds, they've got to supplement that with something a little bit different. Because the management jobs, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused about something that, you know, if you're talking about someone at the CISSP with a very deep cyber background that may have worked in NSA and has TSSCI, there's not 10 people that you can say are sending them. You know, and when you're talking about military background and
Yeah.
working with cyber command and things like that, there's not 10 people. So, you know, I'm hearing that, like yourself, you had to go through 10 interviews. Why, I'm not really understanding why, if you're like a lieutenant colonel or something,
Yeah.
10 interviews, you as a senior leader saying, how can, and if you worked at the Pentagon or anything like that, you're not really used to people having that part of the time making a decision.
You're right.
As a lieutenant colonel, you can take a briefing within 10 minutes and be able to
Yep.
decide yes or no. And
Yep.
that's the change from the military background of you having to quickly making decisions under pressure to someone having to go to, as I've been here,
Yeah.
everyone's got a panel. Well,
Yeah.
I'm used to going to a leader and then making a decision. Here it seems like there's 6 pages of brief of things you need to provide, panel interviews, multiple days.
Well, the interview process.
Different process than what
Yep.
our military background is, which is
Well,
people that can make decisions.
Amazon's not hiring to a military standard. Amazon hires military people. When they hire somebody, their hiring process was designed in such a way that they would rather turn 50 people away that are good to find the great. And so they want to make that bar so high that when they make that final decision to hire, they know they've made a good decision, and then that person is retained. So I don't think it's so much a function of inability to decide or poor decision making on our hiring processes side. It's a process that was put in place because it works. It works for Amazon. It may not work for other organizations. I didn't find it that cumbersome. I found it challenging and exciting to keep making it to the next level. And so, as far as finding guys with the right skills, and like you said, somebody might come from a military background at NSA and have. But here's the problem I see: you get a military guy that's coming out, and they want to be a business development guy, and they want to be the head of sales. Well, you don't have any sales background. You might have resource management experience and understand how to control cost, but you have no idea what P&L is or how to generate income for a company, unless you have an MBA, but you have no experience. So there's a whole gamut of things that come into play in these decision-making pieces. And the person that's interviewing you, by the way, on those interview cycle loops that we call them, of those 6 people that might interview you, 5 of those people might have nothing at all to do with the job that you're interviewing for. There might be a guy in Seattle that works at a fulfillment center, but he's been at Amazon for 4 years. And they have him on that panel because they want to make sure that the person that's being hired is an Amazon fit. They don't care that, we're not now at that phase, we're not looking at technical skill. And so there are some flaws, there's no doubt. I mean, you're going to get an interview session sometimes with a guy, and they're not going to know anything about that position, and that's a bad thing too. So, yeah, we're not up here to tell you it's a perfect system, but I think it works for our company, and it's been in place for a while, and it's.
Yeah, I mean, we hire on skill, potential, and culture. We don't hire on need. We need a lot of people. There's no doubt about that. And what Matt's talking about, getting the fulfillment center manager from Seattle to also interview a candidate, that's our checks and balances system. That's making sure that the pressures I feel as a hiring manager don't come forward when I'm trying to make a decision on hiring a candidate. We only hire the best, and it's a cumbersome process, but intentionally so. We want that return that is going to be unparalleled in our organization.
But I have a guy that has a CISSP, and I tell you what, you know, good example, I sent him to go get his hours, and I paid for that trip so he could keep his certification up. And nobody above me told me I could do that, or nobody told me I couldn't. I just did it.
You just make decisions.
And I live with it. And I paid the money, the $3,000, whatever it was, to fly him to Tampa for a week and attend a conference and maintain that. Because I feel like we brought this guy aboard because that CISSP piece was an important part of his resume and why he got hired. So why should I not at least help him maintain that certification? So that's the kind of freedom of action as a manager that this place also affords, and why I love it. Because nobody's telling me how to do my job. They created my job. I was the first guy in it. They just said, hey, I hope you do well. You know, hire a bunch of people and make sure that they're good people, by the way, and they meet our standard, and make this thing work. And so that's the kind of appeal that I think that this place has.
So our sessions run over a little bit. I think they're playing the music by opening the doors. Matt and I are still in here at 3 o'clock. The original intent was to give a very similar presentation that I opened with, and us to share our stories about transition and to field questions. If it is the same audience, we'll just continue to field questions. But I think it's a good stopping point to take a bit of a 10-minute break. If we see you back here, we'll see you at 3. Thank you so much for joining us.